Okay, Dr. Kumar said he cannot hear. I'm going to suggest that he shut his phone off. And we can go ahead and start. He says he cannot hear. Restart your phone. Twitter updated. Twitter just updates quite a bit. And updated. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start because I want to be mindful of our 1 hour. Hi, everybody. This is Tanya Schultz. Welcome to my weekly health space. I am co-hosted with my co-host, Brian. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hello, Tanya. Good Wednesday.
How's it
Good
going?
Wednesday to you.
Yeah, good Wednesday. Oh, we lost Ross too. We lost our two guests. They'll be back. I think because we spend so much time on Twitter Spaces, we just kind of like are able to move around on it quicker than everybody else. It seems that way. And then in the space, we have my good friend Q. She's in here hanging out with us. Thank you for all your support, Q.
Hello, Q.
Oh, here we go.
Hello.
Oh, there you go. Pause. Oh, how are you?
Nice to be on with everybody here.
Okay, I think I put my headphone on. Here we go. Okay, Russ. While we're waiting for Dr. Kumar, can we? I know we did this last week. I want to continue bringing you in here so you can get comfortable and start. And I'm hoping that you'll be utilizing this Twitter Spaces as your own platform also, especially with your upcoming book launch and some of the really data that you have accumulated and has written about. There he is.
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am,
Kumar.
I'm here. Yes, I got it.
Hey, he's on. Good.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Dr. Kumar.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
welcome. Glad you made it.
Thank you.
So I was just saying that I've been trying to get all my good friends and people I work with in the regenerative medicine and really the age management arena to come start using Twitter Spaces and talk about longevity and some of the protocols that are out there and some of the studies people are doing. So I want to bring all the major leaders in longevity to Twitter Spaces to share their thoughts and what they're doing. So I was privileged and I'm so happy because my good friend who is the president of the Age Reversal Network that I work with, Brian Delaney, included me in an email. And you know, I know a bit about rapamycin, but Ross Pelton is known as the natural pharmacist. So he's been he wrote, I think, 12 books from what he told us last week and some of his research, and we're very excited about it. And Life Extension Foundation is also be promoting his new book, and they are offering some incentive also toward his crowdfunding. And then I also have my Dr. Kumar here, who I work with closely. He has an incredible practice in functional and regenerative medicine in Palm Beach and in Palm Beach County area. So he deals with a lot of now post-COVID patient, and so I'm so happy that they're both here. And so before I can go on and on about this, I'll go ahead and have Ross tell a little bit about himself so that give a quick review, and then also next after that we'll have Dr. Kumar.
Sure. Well, thanks, Tanya. A little bit of my background. I originally was a pharmacist. I now call myself a recovering pharmacist. And I've got intensely interested in the science and technology of anti-aging and life extension. And over the last year, I've been really studying very deeply the new science surrounding the drug rapamycin, which is the most effective life extension drug that's ever been discovered. And although the story of mycin is very exciting because it's produced 25 to 40% life extension in every single species of animal that's been tested on, really there's a more important story beyond the rapamycin story. And that has developed from 20 years of research and scientists around the world trying to figure out the mechanism of rapamycin. How and why did this life extension drug work? And that has led to this discovery of two fundamental intracellular mechanisms that control cellular biology. And they're called mTOR, which is the mechanistic target of rapamycin, When rapamycin crosses a cellular membrane and enters a cell, it binds with an enzyme that they named mTOR for mechanistic target of rapamycin. The other part of this equation is a counterbalancing cellular mechanism called autophagy. And a Japanese scientist won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for his discovery of autophagy. So mTOR senses when nutrients are available in the cell, and it gives cell signals to build and grow and proliferate. Build, grow, when nutrients are available. When nutrients are not available, then autophagy gets expressed. And autophagy is kind of like the rest phase in cellular biology, but it's not really resting. We call sleep our rest phase, but there's a lot of activity going on when people are sleeping. Same with autophagy. Although it's called the rest phase, it's the recycling and reutilization of damaged and used up cellular components so that you can use those components to rebuild new proteins and new enzymes, and or remove damaged things from the cell, which is the detoxification process. So over 99.9% of human evolution, mTOR and autophagy were in balance. Over the last several hundred years, they've gotten vastly out of balance because refrigeration and the convenience of processed foods has made foods easily available all of the time. Most of humanity is now in love with their food, and compared to ancient humans, people these days are eating all the time, which means mTOR is always getting expressed and autophagy gets very little time for expression. And this is an underlying fundamental problem relating to health, and that kind of ties into what I call the epidemic of epidemics. We have dozens of different types of epidemic: heart disease, cancer, metabolic syndrome, and diabetes, and ADHD, and autism, and on, epidemics. The whole world is not healthy. Most of people, I'd say 90% of people, have one or more diseases and are taking medication. And a fundamental mechanism here is the imbalance between mTOR and autophagy. Rapamycin can help correct this problem. The other way to correct it is with time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting, which reduces time where nutrients are coming in so that autophagy can be expressed. So that's a quick little elevator speech that kind of introduces this topic. Dr. Kumar, you want to chime in? Any comments to make about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a radiation oncologist, been here in the Palm Beach area and Port St. Lucie area over the past 25 plus years. But anyway, my jump into regenerative medicine, age management medicine was about 4 years ago, when I realized that I was getting old and none of the docs that I was going to really had any idea. So if you had talked to me about age reversal or anti-aging 4 years ago and prior, you would have seen me run 1,000,000 miles an hour away from it because I had no clue. That's when I, met up with Bill Falloon and Tanya and the whole gang. Oh my God, they changed my life. So I did my biological age test, and long story short, I've been using rapamycin on myself. My biological age from 63 with time age of 58 changed to a time age of 61 and a biological age of 53. So that's how dramatic this whole thing was when I first jumped into it. So when I tried to study rapamycin, I just found it heavily confusing. So I took my time kind of analyzing this whole situation. And so studying about mTOR, a very short take on what I think it is, and some of the cautions that we need to take when we are dealing with rapamycin is this. So rapamycin, I don't think should be used in young people. That's a given, right? It's not an age management issue because so mTOR activity is responsible for growth in teenagers and for rapid aging in adults. So it's like a double-edged sword. Okay, you cannot slow down mTOR with rapamycin when these young folks are in an anabolic state, which means the bodybuilding state. Okay, so it's like a car that's accelerating. so fast as we get older that it's nonstop. So we need to put the brakes on that enzyme using rapamycin. That's how I kind of visualize it. And if you use it, you can overcome some of the side effects that are associated with the rapamycin. And we can talk about the alternatives, but that in brief is where I come from. I'm more of a clinician rather than a basic scientist, but I do understand some of the underlying mechanisms behind it because I need to understand what's causing and what's contributing to those side effects. So I know how to help that out. So anyway, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was tweeting out just to let people know. If anyone could, I just tweeted out and I tagged most of the people in this space. If you could retweet me and get more people in here and understand the importance of mTOR, rapamycin, and some of the, I'm sure between Dr. Kumar and Ross Pelton, they will give us some really good gems on some of the ways for us to help with our healthy lifestyle and our goal. Because when we can say we want to live longer, but if we're not living, we're sitting by the TV and looking at the TV and not really doing anything, and say, I don't know about you guys. If I'm 100 years old and I'm not moving around, I don't think that's is a quality of life. I want to be moving around, doing stuff. So the longevity is the key, but mobility is also, and not be frail. So let's go ahead and talk. Let's start with Ross. Ross, what are your thoughts? Like, you have been doing all this research with rapamycins, and I actually, there was like a whole bunch of research online. Actually, if you really want to dwell into this, what are your thoughts about aging, like longevity? Isn't it our goal to be, if we age, we're gonna age, but our goal is to be able to not to be frail.
Right. The goal is to delay the onset of age-related diseases. And it's not just simply life extension, it is the quality of your life. So we're talking about increasing health span, not just increasing lifespan. And there, as you mentioned, Tanya, there's many aspects related to aging. Diet, nutrition, exercise are all critical things. And although rapamycin is very exciting because it is really the most effective life extension drug that's ever been discovered, if people are going to continue to lead a sedentary lifestyle and eat processed food, rapamycin is not going to be much benefit. You've got to really be committed to living a healthy lifestyle. But because food is so easily available and people are consuming food far more frequently than ancient humans, the mTOR enzyme is vastly overexpressed, and autophagy and cellular detoxification and revitalization doesn't get a chance to get adequately expressed. And this is, I think, a fundamental underlying mechanism that is responsible for a great deal of the health problems throughout the world. And I really do totally agree with Dr. Kumar that rapamycin should not be used in younger people. In children or teenagers and even young adults in their early 20s, you're still in a growth phase. So rapamycin is only, I would say, to be primarily used for middle and elderly people, when over years and years, mTOR has continually been overexpressed. And I call this mTOR syndrome. The continual overexpression of mTOR results in increases in all age-related diseases, including Alzheimer's disease and cancer and metabolic syndrome. They're all fundamentally related to mTOR syndrome and the constant overexpression of mTOR, because nutrients and always being available to sell, people are eating all the time, relatively speaking, compared to ancient humans.
Hello, Ross. This is Brian. Welcome
Hi.
back. I just well, I have a lot of questions, but just to start, what role does rapamycin play in the biomarkers of aging? How does it influence, say, like inflammation markers, maybe even telomeres, insulin sensitivity, things of that nature?
Good question. Rapamycin has a significant effect on metabolic syndrome and inflammation, reducing inflammation. And there's work on memory, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and so forth, because overexpression of mTOR creates excess inflammation. And so these are just some of the things that are tied into inflammatory processes. I'm not aware of any information about rapamycin and telomeres yet. So that would be a good place to start doing some research. But really, what's the real problem is that we don't have good biomarkers of aging yet. It's really hard to effectively track and measure how effective some of these age reversal and life extension products are.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. One of the beneficial effects of mTOR inhibition in elderly folks is the reversal of cardiac damage. Improvement in cardiac is huge, especially with the patients that we have today. So obviously, that comes in with weight loss too. Cardiac function will improve if there's less, body tonnage that it has to deal with. But that's something that really opened my eyes onto the health benefits of rapamycin.
Yeah, and I want to chime in here too, Doctor. That's a very good point. The effect that rapamycin has on cardiovascular health. And one of the things I put in my book is there was a study in mice that documented that rapamycin not only delays the onset of cardiovascular symptoms, it actually reverses some of the symptoms of cardiovascular disease. So this is one of the first studies in an animal study that documents that rapamycin can also reverse the aging process, not just slow it down.
Absolutely. That's the key. That's it. As far as insulin sensitivity is concerned, that's something that we need to worry about, because rapamycin can actually increase insulin resistance.
Yeah, that's called pseudo diabetes.
Yeah,
it really doesn't happen very often. But yes, people can get into trouble by overexpressing the inhibition of mTOR. If you are exercising regularly and intermittent fasting and taking rapamycin and taking metformin, you can do too much inhibition of mTOR. So yes, just like everything, too much is too much.
Yeah, and I think that's where Tanya knows this too. One of the things that I do with when we're talking about protocols is to put patients on metformin, even though they do not have active diabetes. So it kind of protects against the insulin resistance of rapamycin. But metformin itself, by itself, even without talking about insulin sensitivity, has a huge anti-aging effect because of its effect on AMPK enzyme. That's a different topic, but metformin, rapamycin go hand in hand.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I recommend metformin for most adults. I think it really is one of the best anti-aging drugs. And I actually posted a post on my blog on my website a couple of years ago and reporting that I think most adults could benefit from taking metformin. And there is a study showing that the combination of rapamycin and metformin have synergistic effects and give faster and better outcomes.
Awesome. Yep. It's a lot of good stuff happening out there that 99% of the doctors are clueless about.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
I didn't want to go down this path, but can I ask you a little bit about rapamycin and the treatment of COVID? Because if you look up rapamycin right now, that's the story right now.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting question, Tanya. I'll do some research on that, because this is how I'm looking at COVID, because I believe COVID is going to hasten somebody's biological age. I think, with all the inflammation that's created inside the body, maybe rapamycin may have a role, And I would focus the rapamycin on long-term COVID patients more as an aging medicine rather than a direct COVID medicine.
I agree with that, but rapamycin's anti-inflammatory effects can probably have an effect, because one of the major problems with COVID-19 disease is the respiratory infection and the cytokine storm that just destroys the lungs.
Yeah. Let me take a look at it, Tanya. I'll give you guys an update.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you that. It's actually the whole clinical study on it right now.
Awesome.
I just found it. Yeah, it's about rapamycin drug repurposing.
Yeah, it's on
SARS-CoV-2 infection.
Yeah, it's on PubMed right now. Holy cow. That's interesting. I'm going to go through this. Pretty cool.
One thing that I want people to be aware of, though, is that
I've shared that with you.
The FCC and the FDA are strongly clamping down on any healthcare practitioners and many companies in their websites who are making any claims that natural products can be used to treat or prevent COVID. So
yeah.
I like to stay away from that because the FCC and the FDA are really going after these people and fining them and shutting down their businesses.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, one little experiment I did with myself, you know, being we talked about this last time, Ross. You know, being from the bodybuilding world, it is it's, you know, it's big on pushing mTOR. You know, a lot of leucine. You see a lot of protein powders have extra branched chain amino acids in them. I think unnecessarily, and all that extra leucine in when you would take these protein powders, I'm saying in my case, I saw additional inflammation, more inflammation. And now I don't take protein powders. You know, I eat my protein food. And there might be something to that where, you know, they push a lot of branched chain amino acids with a lot of leucine, and that increases the mTOR, which, as you know, if you're an older adult, you're seeing increased inflammation. That's just one thing. So I cut back, really eliminated the you know, the protein powders, and had just better results. My you know, my inflammation, my joints decreased dramatically. Just know what some of your thoughts on that.
Well, I think this is an area that needs to be well researched, and as yet it hasn't been. But if mTOR is inhibited, you are going to inhibit muscle growth because mTOR regulates growth and formation of muscle. But this is an area that needs to be studied, and it hasn't been studied yet. So nobody really knows the answer to this. With continual inhibition of mTOR, how much does it interfere with muscle growth and strength over time?
And Dr. Kumar, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the using um, uh, CBD or cannabinoids for, you know, long COVID. Do you have to use the THC, or is it, you know, the properties in CBD itself that can lower the cytokines or the inflammation?
You know, so when it comes to medical cannabis, my experience has always been every patient is individual, and it's trial and error. It's only trial and error to see what works for each individual, you know, across the board, whether it's Parkinson's disease. So in our traditional medical world, we have names for all these things, right? But when it comes to stuff like medical cannabis or cannabis in general, you know, I think it's, so what I do is when I make a recommendation for medical cannabis for patients, I tell them to go to the dispensary and pick out a combination, you know, any combination for the first week and see. So the two variables are the strain of the medical cannabis combination they're going to get and the dose. Those are the two variables. So I tell them to use a particular combination for the first week and see what happens. If that doesn't work, go back and try another combination. So it takes about 2 or 3 attempts with the discussion between the patient and the person at the dispensary to figure out the combination that will really work. Because it's just not long COVID. I mean, they have anxiety issues, so many other issues. They can't sleep well. It's just not one symptom that we're looking at. It's a series of stuff. So it's a combination of stuff. So I can't make a general statement saying that you need both or either one. It's just no way of predicting. So I give the option to the patient as to figure out what works for them and find that magic dose. You know, once they figure out the combination of the dose that they need, you know, what I recommend is sublingual drops, and that's it. You know, they stay with it until things, you know, change for anything else, and then they go back in and refigure this out. But it does work once you find that fine combination of the strain and the dose. It changes patients' lives for sure.
And Ross, in your studies, are people using rapamycin in a fasted state, or why they're fasting, or does it matter when to take it?
As far as I can tell, it doesn't matter when you take it, just take it. But it has to be taken on an intermittent dosage regime rather than taking it daily, which is what the dosage is for preventing organ rejection in patients that have had organ transplants. And when it's used for chemotherapy, for life extension, it looks like the